Okay, how many of us are ready? If you're ready, just type ready in the message section. Just type ready if you're ready. And I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay, so before we continue, I just want to ask a quick question. And if you have an answer to that, you can just unmute yourself and just tell us what you think about it. Okay, so the question is, when you hear the term digital literacy, what comes to mind? When you hear the term digital literacy, or let's break it down first. Let's take the term digital. So when you hear the term digital, what does it mean, or what comes to mind? If you have an answer for that, you can just unmute yourself and give us the answer, give us your ideas on it. Does anyone have an answer? But I hope you guys can hear me. Hello? Yeah, so I was asking, when you hear the term digital, what comes to mind? Okay, Eunice has her hand up. Eunice, do you have an answer?
Okay. The website, the ability to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information using the user to such as the computer and laptop and the other. Yeah.
Can you come again?
I said it's the ability, the digital literacy is the ability to create, find, evaluate, and then communicate information using the digital tools such as the laptop and the PC and mobile phones.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have an answer? Okay, Joan says digital means doing something with the help of electronic devices. That's also a good answer. Does anyone else have an idea to what the term digital means? Okay, if no one else have, okay, Daniel has his hand up. Daniel, any answer for us on what digital means?
Okay, please. To me, when you say something is digital, it means computers are involved, or anything that involves the use of computers is digital.
Okay, that's another good answer. Okay, so basically when we talk about the term digital, we are basically referring to devices, anything related to electronic devices or computing devices. So anything digital means it works with electricity and it has some sort of mechanism added to it. Is that clear enough, or you want me to go deeper into the explanation? Okay. So now that we understand what digital means, what about the term literacy? Literacy. How do you understand the term literacy? Or to be literate? If we say someone's literate, what does that mean? Does anyone have an answer?
literacy to me is like having the ability or knowledge about something.
Please, I didn't get what you just said. Can you repeat it for us?
Okay, I said with the literacy is like having knowledge about something.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll pick an answer from two more people and then we continue. The term literacy, how do you understand it? Okay, Patrick says, it's the ability to understand and use something. And Jones also says it means being able to read, write, and being able to interpret something. Those are good definitions of the word literacy. So literacy basically means having an education or being educated on a certain topic or in a certain field. That's basically what literacy means. So when we combine the two, basically means that having knowledge or having a fair education on the use of devices or digital gadgets and stuff. So basically being educated on anything related to anything related to the digital world. So it's not anything really complex like that. Okay, so why are we taking this subject or why are we looking at this topic? The reason is that in this modern world, in this modern era, in anything that you do, in any kind of field where you find yourself, you can't do without technology or you can't do without the digital space or the digital world. Because let's say you're into accounting these days, people use Excel. Let's say you're a writer and an author, you need to use digital means. So you can't do without technology in this modern era. And although there are people out there who have this weird fear of technology, does anyone here have a fear of technology like you? I say, oh, technology and also, does anyone here have that phobia? Like you see anything technological, then it's like some part of you wants to break. Does anyone have that kind of phobia? Or anything about technology scares you? Please, I want this to be interactive, so if I give a question, please try and answer. If you can't say it because you're shy, you can type it. Okay, so I'll take it that no one here has a fear of technology. That's great. Okay, so as I said earlier, technology is a big part of our world these days. And before you can be able to grow your business or grow your brand from the level it is now, you need to include technology to it. And I assume that a lot of people here, or let's say 50 or 30% of the people here, are into church ministry. Can I see by hands, like those who are into church ministry? Or you do something for your church, let's say you're part of the media or you're part of the ushers, or let's say you do something in the church. Okay, we have a few people raising their hand. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you can't do without technology in this modern era or in this current world. Now, before you get into technology or before you embed technology into whatever you are doing or whatever space you find yourself, you need to understand or know how to use computers. Now, when you say computers, people have this perception that a computer is basically a laptop, a MacBook, or a desktop. But a computer can literally be a lot of things. So let's look at the term computer. Who here knows what a computer is? Like a fair, brief definition of what a computer is or what a computer does. I'll give us like 30 seconds to provide answers to that. Okay, Christopher has an answer. Chris. So let Chris start and then Jones will come after. So Chris, how do you understand computers or what comes to mind when you hear the word computer? Hello, Chris. Can Christopher hear me? Okay, Jones, do you have an answer?
Yes, please. Pardon me for my voice. I'm in the that one. It is a computer refers to an electronic device that processes data the interface with the user for programming.
Okay, yeah, that's basically one of the main functions of a computer. Anyone else? I want the next answer to be from a girl. Any of the girls, do you have an understanding or a brief idea on what a computer is? Or if someone asks you what's a computer, what definition will you give to the person? Patrick is saying a computer is a digital device that is used to perform a specific function or a general function. That's a good answer. So it's a digital device. And then the other term you used, function. Okay, so we have two terms now. Does anyone else have an answer? And I think Joan said something about data and information. Oh, Jones, am I right? You said something about data and information, right?
Yes, please. I'm mentioning data.
Okay. Okay, so you have these four terms currently. Does anyone have something different to add? Okay, Joy. Joy, do you have an answer for us? Okay, I think Joy's off. So,
Hello.
yeah,
Hello.
yeah.
And for the device we are talking about, computer, is any device that you can use to get access to the internet efficiently. Though the mobile phone can be used to get access to it. But if you want efficiency worker, you need to use computer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so you also mentioned something about the device, and you also said something about the internet. Okay, so we can define a computer as a digital device or any electronic device that helps us process data or that can process data into information. So this one is basic ICT definition. Okay, Patrick says a computer. Okay, I think I've already said that one. And Christopher also says that it's an electronic device that processes data according to a set of instructions to perform a wide variety of tasks. So we have a new term here, which is set of instructions. Okay, so set of instructions. That's the new term we have. So let me break it down. So what a computer does is it receives data here, receives data into the computer for processing, and that processed data gives us the information. So now how does the computer receive this data? The computer receives this data by means of input devices. So the basic input devices we have there are the mouse, and the keyboard. These two help send data into the computer for processing. And once that data has been processed, we get information. So now, this term over here, set of instructions. So this set of instructions can also be defined as data. So data is basically a set of instructions or a set of figures. So now, what kind of things or how do we send, what are the other ways of sending data into the computer for processing? So we've mentioned the devices that help us, but also there's something called programs, which we can define as apps or software. So a software or an app is basically a set of instructions that is given to a computer to be processed and to provide some sort of information. Please, are you guys getting me? If you are confused at any point, kindly draw my attention, then I just go back and explain it further. Okay, so before I continue, let me just give some examples of a computer. So since the people give us the definitions that a computer is a digital device that helps process data into information, then we can also say that a mobile device, a phone, is also a computer, because a phone also processes data into information. So a phone can be a computer, a laptop is a computer, a MacBook is a computer. Even a digital calculator is a computer because it takes data and then processes it into information, giving you the results of the numbers or calculation you dialed in. So yeah, so that's basically what a computer is. Okay, so now let's tackle the data and then information. Okay, so data, which we said are a set of figures or instructions. And then information, which we also defined as processed data. But I hope you guys are making notes or you understand all this stuff already. Okay, so data, set of figures or instructions, information, processed data. So now what happens here in the center of these two elements is where we have the processing. So now how is this processing done? So this processing is done with the help of a processing unit. And the most common processing unit we have out there is the CPU, the central processing unit. So this CPU helps the computer to take that data that we received and then processes it into information. So now how does this CPU work, or how does this central processing unit work? So most CPUs come in cores. So you realize that we have CPUs from 8 cores to about 24 cores. So what does this mean? This means that the more cores your device has, the more it's able to process data into information. So the more less CPU cores you have, the less it's able to process that data into information. So when you are scouting or looking for a laptop or a PC to buy, you mostly have to look out for the cores. So the cores will tell you how much data that laptop or that computer can process data into information. Because if your CPU has less cores, that means it won't be able to process a lot of data at a time. So you need something with a high number of cores to be able to process that data into information. So now what happens when the CPU is at work? So what happens is that the CPU stores temporary data into what we call the RAM, also known as random access memory. because when it receives the data, it needs somewhere to store that temporary data whilst it works on it. And that's where this thing called the RAM comes in. So although, let's say you might have a CPU with, let's say, 10 cores. So you have a CPU with 10 cores, so it's taking in all that data. But now you realize that your RAM is maybe as low as 4 gigabytes. So let's say they have a huge amount of data coming into your device, but then you have a limited RAM storage of 4 gigabytes. So what happens is, let's say you have 100 data coming in, and then you have less storage in your RAM. And let's say it takes about, let's say 30 of that data can enter this 4 gigabyte RAM. So what happens is that it delays the other 70 left and then processes the one that it has received earlier. So what happens here is that since there's a lot of data coming in and then you have a limited amount of RAM, your PC begins to lag or it begins to run very slow because it doesn't have enough random access memory to handle the huge amount of data coming in. Now, with creatives, people who use softwares like Photoshop, Premiere Pro, or let's say CapCut. So these editing softwares usually send a lot of data into your PC for processing. So let's say you have a 4 gigabyte RAM on your PC and you're trying to run Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and CapCut. What is happening is you are forcing too much data into your RAM. And since there's a lot of stuff coming in, you might end up crashing one of these softwares, or maybe all of them might end up crashing because the RAM cannot handle that amount of data coming in. That's why it's mostly advised that when you're getting a laptop that you're going to use to do your editing or some creative work, it's advised that you get a RAM between 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes. So examples of RAMs that we have. So mostly in the current devices that we use, which is the desktop or the laptop, the modern types of RAMs we use are the DDR4 and the DDR5. So this one is more common and more popular in modern laptops, and this one is, I think this one is new. You can find this one in new devices, but you're not going to go deep into this. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what it is. Okay, so the RAM storages we have 4 gigabytes of RAM. We have 8 gigabytes. There's 16 gigabytes. And then there's 32. And we have even more than that. So if you are someone or your device has this 4 gigabytes of RAM, so this technically means you won't be able to do creative work on it. You won't be able to do your editing on it because it won't be able to process a lot of data into your PC. If you have an 8 gigabyte RAM PC, it's enough, but let's say you won't be able to run multiple softwares at once. So you'll be able to run maybe Photoshop at a time, then unless you close it and then open another one so that you don't feed in too much data into your computer for processing. Before I continue, does anyone have a question or I should go on? Does anyone have a question? Okay. Athlete, do you have a question? Okay, no one has a question. Let me continue. So I said with 8 gigabyte RAM, you'll be able to run at least or at most one software at once. But when it comes to sizes like the 16 and the 32, because these ones have huge RAM sizes, it will be able to process a lot of data at a time. So you'd be able to do more work. But here's the problem. Sometimes you might have a 16 gigabyte RAM on your laptop, but you won't be able to run certain softwares. And you realize that those softwares begin to crash, although you have a huge RAM size. So what could be the problem, or what could be causing that? Okay, so back to the processing units. See, first I mentioned the CPU, but then we also have something called the GPU. So the GPU is basically the graphics processing unit. So earlier I said that the CPU has about 8 to 24 cores in it. The GPU has thousands of cores. A GPU can have thousands of cores running. This means it can take in a lot of data and a lot of complicated tasks at a time as compared to the CPU. Although the CPU is important for running your PC, the GPU is like a boost or like a superpower to your PC or to your device. So if you are running an editing software like Photoshop, and Photoshop is a software that requires or uses a lot of data, or that sends a lot of data into your PC for processing. Sometimes if you have a good GPU, a good CPU, you can still be able to run the software without any huge problems. But once you have a GPU added to that, you'll be able to do more work, so you'll be able to perform more difficult tasks. Like, let's say you are editing something, or you're creating a design which is about 10,000 pixels. Okay, let me see if I can demonstrate that. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so let's say you have a software like Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Photoshop is an editing software. Some people use it to create flyers, some people use it to create designs and do retouching on photographs and all that. But today I'm not going to, we'll talk about Photoshop as a whole complete topic on its own, but I want to demonstrate something about the RAM usage or the GPU usage. Okay, so let's say you're creating a design. Let's say you're running a RAM like 16 gig, or let's say 8 gig, and you're creating a design for a billboard. And then the size of that billboard is about, let's say, 50 inches. And I'm sure you guys know how long 50 inches can be. Or let's say, let me make it higher. So let's say 80 inches by 45 inches. And then I create. So let me convert that to pixels. Does anyone here know what pixels are? Does anyone have an idea on the term of what pixels mean? Anyone? Or all of you know what a pixel is? Hello, can I be heard? Okay. Let me explain what a pixel is before I continue. Okay, let me use this to demonstrate what a pixel is. So A pixel is basically little square boxes that come together. Okay, Patrick has given us a definition. Says they are simply the tiny boxes on the screen that comes together to create an image. So when you zoom into an image on your device, you see these square boxes. Can you guys see it? So these tiny boxes you see here are called pixels. So all these number of pixels come together to form the image. So every picture or every image you see out there is just a collection or a combination of different tiny square boxes which are known as pixels. So as we continue with the course, I may use the term pixels. So I'm sure right now, you guys understand what pixels are. Okay, let me continue. Okay, so I said I'm converting this to pixels, so we see the number of pixels here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the bottom of the screen, but let me just write it here so you. Okay, so down there is 24,000 pixels per 13,000 pixels. So this new document or this new canvas I've created here has these number of pixels, 24,000 by 13,500. So this basically means that I'm working with a very, very huge file. So now let's see what happens if I start putting stuff into it to create a design. Okay, so I'm just going to keep duplicating this, and then we'll see what happens. I don't know if you guys can notice that the more I go there, more it begins to get slower and slower. I don't know if you guys can notice it. Okay, so what this means is that I'm performing like a lot of tasks that the computer is having difficulty reading, and also because of the dimensions I used for the document. So it's like now there's a lot of data entering into the PC, and the PC is trying its hardest to process that data. But since I keep adding more instructions, adding more tasks to it, the CPU or the processing unit begins to get overwhelmed. So let me show you guys something. Okay, so here, I don't know if you guys can see it. So this is the CPU graph. So this tells you, or this shows you the range or the processing speed or the processing, the current processing unit's ability or what it's currently going through. So I want to find a way to do what I was doing with the graph still showing. Okay. So I'm going to repeat what I was doing earlier. So you guys see what happens. So you can see that every processor make the graph goes up and up and up. Can you all see that? So if I repeat that again, you see that the graph goes up. If I repeat that, it goes up again. Can you guys see, or can you guys observe what I'm doing? Yeah, so that's basically it about data and sending data into your computer. Okay, let's talk about the next thing. Does everyone understand up to this point, or if you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions to ask? Okay, if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask. Any questions so far? Okay, so no questions. And we understand up to this point. Okay, someone is asking, what is the recommended pixel size for designing? Okay, so we've not started the poster designing and all that yet, but let me just answer your question. So mostly this one depends on the laptop or the PC you are using and how much RAM or the GPU you have. But mostly it's preferred that you use around it shouldn't be more than 2,500 pixels. It should be somewhere in between. But if you feel like your PC can handle it, you can increase it to about 10,000 or more. But to be on the safe side, keep it around 2,000, 2,500 or 1080 pixels. Have I answered your question? Okay, someone says that they just joined. Do you guys think I should give him a summary of whatever we talked about, or I shouldn't? Should I give him a summary of whatever we talked about? Okay, Patrick says I should. Okay, so Razak, so we started with looking at the terms digital and the term literacy, where we define digital as anything that has to do with electronic devices, and literacy having to do with understanding a certain topic or a certain subject, and where we said, oh yeah, experiencing network issues, but don't worry, I'll put this, I'm recording this session, so it will be on my YouTube page. I'll share the link right after we are done. Okay, so like I was saying, we defined the digital as anything relating to electronic devices, and literacy meaning understanding a certain topic or a certain subject. And then we combine the two terms and define digital literacy as being educated on electronic devices or anything that has to do with the digital space. And then we began to look at what a computer is and what a computer does, whereas some of us define a computer as an electronic device that processes data into information. And then we took a look on how the computer processes that data into information, where we talked about terms like data and terms like information, where we said data is a set of raw instructions which are entered into the computer for processing. And then we defined information as processed data. And then we talked about the processing unit, where the process which the computer takes to take that data and turn it into information, where we talked about the devices that are responsible for that processing activity, which are called the processing units. And we talked about the main processing unit of every computer, which is known as the CPU, or in full, central processing unit, where we said that the CPU is responsible for receiving that data, processing it, and then turning it into information. So input devices help us put or enter that data into the computer for processing, and then output devices help us see that data or help us view that data that has been processed. Razak, do you understand whatever I just said, or you have questions? Okay, so yeah, I think whatever I said is clear enough. Okay, so we have about 5 to 10 minutes to end the session. 5 to 10 minutes to end the session. What do you guys want me to talk about? What do you guys want me to talk about for the next 10 minutes? It can be anything related to what we just learned, or something in the digital space you don't understand or you're trying to figure out and all that. Well, if no one has any suggestion, let me see if I can talk about this for the next 10 minutes. Okay. So as young individuals, as young people, business owners, and people into ministry and all that, one huge problem that we all face or we all experience is time management. And we do not realize that we have the tools and gadgets that can assist us to manage our time. And one of those tools could be your reminders app or the Google Calendar. A lot of us have that Google Calendar in our phones or in our laptops, and it's basically on the internet. So to help you manage your time well, or to help you manage your things or be well organized, I'd mostly advise people to use the Google Calendars to structure their time well. Let me see if I can open my Google Calendar. Okay, so I have my Google Calendar here. So let's say you have an upcoming program or you have a meeting to join. And let's say the meeting is at 8 and you don't want to forget or you don't want it to slip you by. The best thing you can do is to add it to your Google Calendar so that you do not forget that date or the time that the meeting is supposed to take place. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I know that there's a meeting at 7:30, so when it's 7:30, I'll join. But something can happen and then you end up not joining or you end up joining late. So what you can do is just set a reminder or add it to your calendar that, oh, 7:30, I have this meeting, or 8:30, I have this meeting. And then you set it up. And once that time arrives, you get a notification that, oh, you have this meeting here. So what this helps you with is that, let's say you have a lot of meetings and a lot of things to do. Let's say you're a student and you have to go and study here, you have to go and you have this class at this time. You can put all that into your reminders or into your calendar. So that, let's say you have another program that comes, but you realize that on your calendar it's fighting with another thing that you have to do. So you look at the two, which one is more important or which one can you let go of. Then it's either you place it with that then on your schedule, or you keep the one that was already there and then postpone the other one, or you can give a notice to whoever is holding that meeting that you will be able to join. And mostly that thing is really important. Being able to let a meeting host know that you won't be able to join is really, really important. And it shows a sign of maturity instead of just ignoring and not letting the person know anything. It can be as light as an online church administration, or it could be a business meeting or a work meeting. So once you start doing that, it will become a part of you, and it will put in you this sense of maturity or this sense of being an adult. So it's not like you just miss the meeting and then you don't send any notice. And once you keep sending a notice that, or let's say you have the meeting like 3 times this week, you have a business meeting 3 times this week, and then you missed all 3 meetings, and then you sent the text that, oh, I'll not be able to join. Once you go back to that text and you see that, oh, you've sent this message 3 times already that you won't be able to join, to make you feel some type of way that, oh, I keep making excuses for this. Let me try my best to join the next time. I don't know if whatever I'm saying is making sense. I'm just making some few suggestions to help you with your online meeting attendance and all that. So you can basically do all this, and it will help you in the long run, because sometimes you need to create space in your head for more important things. Because if you're at this age and you keep keeping dates and times of events in your head, you will not have that mind space for other important things. So it's best to create systems that help you manage your time more effectively. If it's an alarm you need to set, you just need to set it. It won't do anything to you. It will rather help you manage your time properly. Yeah, so I've talked about setting calendar times and all that. And also, when it comes to internet security, or being, how do I put this, or being safe on the internet, let me just add this last thing so we can end the meeting. How many of us know two-step authentication? Two-step authentication. I think it's very common in a lot of social media platforms these days. Yeah, we even have it on WhatsApp, where it tells you to add a second authentication to keep your account safe. So if you receive, or if someone is trying to log into your account and then they get the first code which comes to your phone by SMS, they'll have to enter in a new code. And that code is from the two-step authentication, which only you can access. And I'm sure most of us know that it's on WhatsApp. But when it comes to other platforms, like your Google accounts or maybe some online services you've subscribed to, it's best. And let's say those platforms do not have two-step authentication. You can use authenticator platforms like Google Authenticator. And what Google Authenticator does is it generates a code every number of seconds. So after a certain amount of seconds, the code disappears and then a new code comes again. I would have showed you what mine looks like, but someone might hack my account and do stupid things with it. So yeah, Google Authenticator. And how many of us know of the Google Authenticator? Okay, so some of us already know what the Google Authenticator is and what it does. So it's a little thing you can add to make your account safer or your social media platform safe. Okay, Patrick says this is first time hearing of it. Okay, so Patrick, I think I'll tackle this internet security thing another time so that you understand it properly. Yeah, so I think this is it for today. I don't want to spend more time than I said. So I told you guys I will spend about 15 minutes here, and that's what we've done. And then 10 minutes for questions. Does anyone have a question to ask. It can be related to whatever I talked about or something else you don't understand. Just 10 minutes. Anyone, if you have a question, just raise your hand and ask, or you can just type it in the message section. Does anyone have a question to ask? Does anyone have a question? And Romo, is your hand up? Or if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself. Or there are no questions. If there are no questions too, you can type it in the message box. Any questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, I would like one or two people to give a summary on whatever you learned in this session. One or two people, if you can give us a summary of whatever you learned, I'll be really glad. So you can just unmute yourself and then give us a summary on whatever you learned. Or you'd like me to mention names? Okay, Christopher, can you give us a summary on whatever you learned? Is Christopher on the call? Jones, how about you? Do you have any? Would you like to share whatever you learned in this session?
Yes, thank you. It is okay. We learned about digital literacy. We also learned about the meaning of digital and literacy, looking at their meaning from different perspectives. And we said the digital means being something that has electronic devices. And we said the literacy means being able to read, write, and understand something. Then we also look at the definition of a computer, what a computer is. Then we also look at some key components under computer. We spoke about the data, the information, electronic devices, and the function. And then we also look at what the CPU is, and also RAM, and the scope of DDR4 in the DDR5 RAM, and we also look at RAM. And we made mention of certain, we made mention of examples of software, the Adobe and the Photoshop. So that's what I learned. Hello, sir. Please, was I heard? Uh, Hello, hello. Please, did you hear me?
No, please, no, please. But you can go ahead and
Oh,
give us
okay.
your summary.
So please, I said first we learned about digital literacy, and we started by looking at the definition or the meaning of what a digital is. And we said digital means doing something with the help of electronic devices, or doing something with the help of technology, that's electrically. Then we also looked at the meaning of literacy or literate, where we said literacy means you being able to read, write, and understand what you are doing or something. And from there, we also looked at the definition of a computer. And we said computer is an electronic device or a digital device that helps to process data into a meaningful and useful information, which can also be used for further purposes or general purposes. And from there, we spoke about some key points under computer. We made mention of data. We looked at what data is, the information to, then electronic devices, and we also look at function under computer. Then from there, we spoke about the hardware and the software components of the computer. And you made mention of the mouse, the keyboard, the CPU. And we looked at RAM and ROM. And you spoke or you explained things pertaining to our usage. You made mention of the 16 gigabyte or the 32 gigabyte, where you said it will be better if we get any of these. And you made mention of the computer software such as the Adobe Edit and the Photoshoot. Okay, please, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. That means you were really paying attention to whatever was going on. Okay. Antoinette, do you have something to share? Antoinette.
Yes, please. Okay, we started with digital literacy. And we said that digital means something related to electronic devices, that is computers. Then the literacy is having knowledge about something. So the digital literacy is you having knowledge to use electronic devices effectively or using the computer effectively. And we talked about computer as electronic device which helps make work faster, processes data into information. So any electronic device which can process data into information can be termed as a computer. So a phone, a laptop, they can also be called computers. And we said something about other things where we how the data will be processed. So if you have a lot, your RAM is not it's limited. You don't have enough RAM, and you feed the data into the computer, too much data into the computer, it will become the computer will run very slow. So we must check the RAM before we input the data and whatever we want into the computer. So that's what I learned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. That was a brilliant submission. And who else? I'll take from two people. Daniel. Daniel, do you have something to add? or a whole submission on what we are able to pick from this session. Hello, Danielle. Okay, I think Daniel is facing some technical issues. Okay, let's take the last one from Patrick. Do you have something to add? Patrick or Gladys, do you have something to add? Or maybe you want to share what you learned?
Okay, so there was another part where we talked about computer workloads and then the RAM. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so basically what you said is the more workload that you'll be working on, the higher your RAM is supposed to be. If not so, the computer is going to lag. That's what I wanted to add.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Gladys, you like to make a contribution? Gladys. Okay. Joseph, how about you? Would you like to add something? Joseph. Okay. Okay, so I think we'll end it here for today. And thank you all for joining today's session. And next week, we are going to start with Canva. I want us to move as fast as possible, but not just fast, but in a way that you understand whatever is taught. So and I'm trying my best to let you understand each topic clearly so that we can quickly move to the next one. And I'm hoping that this session, about, let's say, 80 or 90% of you understood whatever was taught. So next week, we'll move to Canva, and then we'll see where we go from there. And the reason I'm moving fast is because some people suggested that I add other topics to the course. And that one is not compulsory. If you feel like you end at where it's supposed to end, that's fine. But if you'd like to continue, you can also let me know. So after we are done with the design and the video editing, we'll move into AI engineering and coding. That will be like way after we are done with this one. So if you want to continue with that one, when we get there, you can just let me know. So that one will delve into coding, website development, JavaScript, HTML, how to use CSS and all that, and also how to use AI and how to type in prompts to get the results that you need. So that won't be after this entire course. Okay, thank you guys for joining today's session, and we'll meet here again, same time next week. If there's a change in time or the day, I'll let you guys know. And for those saying they joined late, I'll upload this video or this session to YouTube so you can watch it, or if you join this session and then you can go back and watch it and then use it as a source of review or recap to whatever you learned today. Thank you guys once again for joining, and see you next week.